What's going on, everyone? We've got a pretty incredible update here for version 1.7.0. And you might have seen a little bit of talk about the gem system, but there's a lot of things about this update that are actually really quite beneficial for you free-to-play players out there. It just seems like overall there's like a very natural progression path that's being reinforced, and in general it's going to be something that's really nice to kind of take advantage of as you're going along. And this also applies to, again, higher spenders. Generally speaking, it applies to everyone, but just something that, well, free-to-play players can kind of adapt this into your progression strategy. Anything that's like more, I guess you could say, altering the strategy of your progression generally favors, those dedicated players. And, well, if you're free to play and you're dedicated, you can definitely take advantage of it. The first thing is their gem system revamp. Now, after this, gems can no longer be dismantled, and each alchemy region will be converted to random legendary gem chests and sent via mail. So you can go ahead and, basically get a bunch of new random legendary gems. In theory, if you have those alchemy regions, which I know I have a couple. We've got transcendent gems and peerless gems. 5 gems of the same position and quality will now randomly combine into a higher quality gem. That is the new way to kind of rank up. Essentially, they added advanced alchemy region, which can be used to refine gems. Advanced alchemy regions can be obtained through daily tasks, which is really nice. Just a way to regularly get progress on your account. They have the treasure shop where gems can be acquired. The treasure shop is now basically a new way to get gems outside of the abyss that we had in the new seasonal game mode, and they added a bunch new gems. These are honestly one of the most powerful things you could add to your build, and it's something that I not really slacked on, but just missed the mark. One of the things was I was trying to time it so that I could really take advantage of all the keys, because in between when, a month before I had essentially started playing the Abyss, I was maybe 15 to 20 floors lower than I actually ended up at the end of that time period, because I made huge improvements during that time. And so I tried to time it so that I could use all my keys, and you kind of all know the story. I lost so many key values, so I'm a little bit behind on the gems, which is a little bit unfortunate because of the random, I guess you'd say accident that they had stacked upon the mistiming. It was just all sorts of unfortunate. But then also we have a new gem instance. So after reaching chapter 31, you can participate in this new gem instance, which seemingly acts as a basically new dungeon, which is really good and really awesome to see. This just, having an option to kind of gather more resources on a daily basis, as long as you're playing actively, seems always beneficial for players that are, playing the game regularly. So that's amazing. And then we have probably the most interesting conversation for future free-to-play progressions. Obviously, the gems, it's probably going to be something that, we can modify our build a little bit, but is just generally going to be the stronger you get, the better you'll do. But this legacy adjustment really changes the name of the game for future progression. So there's 3 parts to this. The first one is that the passive effects of the Bone Ranger Knight Legacy are adjusted to meet the needs of different playstyles. So basically, they were saying the Ghost Legacy is OP, and everyone's running the Ghost Legacy, which is a little bit unfortunate at the current moment. And I'm actually just about to post a video myself about how much the portion of the Ghost Legacy has actually shifted in my progression and how important that has been. But if they're making the Bone Ranger and Knight Legacies way stronger, then it's very likely that the different builds, take for example the Ranger Legacy, which seems like the obvious choice for the Whisperer, might actually be an option for the Whisperer and might be buffed significantly. So that's the first thing, is maybe the Ghost isn't actually truly the one you want to go for. And if, depending on your build, whether it's like counterattack based or something related to the spears or hammers, Knight is what you want to go for. If you're a Sky Splitter or a Sword or Blade of Justice, you're going to go for the Skeleton. Who knows? But it'd be tough to outpace the Ghost. So we're going to have to find out what kind of changes they're making. There's also going to be the Dragon Legacy. Now it's interesting because in the game, I think it's called the Demon. You can get the no, it is Dragon Books. I for some reason I thought it was Demon Books. I feel like there was a translation somewhere where I saw demons. It's likely, but anyways, Legacy of Dragon has been unlocked. The Dragon Legacy skill effects, and I think this is a really cool update with the Dragon Legacy. It will take effect by default without requiring equipment. And the upgrading of Dragon Legacy requires all 4 legacies to simultaneously reach the specified tiers. So essentially, in order to progress in the Dragon Legacy, you need to have all 4 of the other legacies progressed. And this might seem initially like, oh wow, that's kind of intense. Well, there's a couple things about this. One, you oftentimes are focusing on one legacy anyways, because you want those effects, as they're the ones that benefit you greatly. So the fact that Dragon Legacy is something that only is able to be upgraded after you upgrade all the other ones, well, that's not really that big of a downside, because I imagine still upgrading your primary legacy is going to be the most important factor until you really run out of books. But here's the other part that I think is really, really important, and it'll actually allow us to use these books that we might have saved up. If you are someone that, really prioritize getting books, you probably have a lot at this point, because while books are absolutely necessary, unless you are constantly upgrading your heroes and brands and doing the legacy progression, you may have a few spare ones until you start really getting later and later and later. And that is that in the legacy system, upgrading time for other legacies of the same tier will decrease significantly once any branch reaches higher tiers. So there's 2 parts to this. One, for those of you that have been progressing the Ghost Legacy and haven't touched anything else, well, now you can go back into the Ranger Legacy, and previously that would have been a really long legacy to upgrade, and upgrade it very quickly to get some passive stats if you have some spare books, which is really, really nice. Same thing applies to Legacy, or to the Skeleton and Knight. Who knows if, the Ranger is still going to be longer than the Skeleton, or if they're all going to kind of default to a baseline time. I don't know, but that is a nice little bonus. But arguably more importantly is the Ghost takes frickin' forever to upgrade. So it might be more beneficial, and we'll have to figure out whether this is the case, to upgrade your Skeleton Legacy down the tree and then transition that into whatever legacy you want, because of how short the time is to upgrade the Ghost Legacy. I mean, it is like a fourth of the time in most cases, compared to the Ghost Legacy, which is insanely long. And so what can happen is, you progress the Ghost Legacy or the Skeleton Legacy, you get further down, and then the time that you're saving by getting to these certain tiers will make up for itself when you level up the Ghost Legacy. And overall, what will happen is you're able to use the Skeleton books and the Ghost books, but you're getting the Skeleton passive stats while you're getting the Ghost main stats from it being your main legacy. That might be a potential strategy going forward for free-to-play players when you're progressing. And of course, if you are like a Sky Splitter user or a Blade of Justice user, maybe you just want to go for the Knight period because of how important it is with the changes. So it might not even be that the Ghost is relatively important after the adjustment to all 3 of the other legacies. So that's the 2 things we got to kind of factor in going forward. And of course, double S rank weapons are a whole new change to free-to-play progression, because you can now access those when you do have a legendary weapon. So there are a lot of free-to-play changes, and honestly, I am pretty excited about it. I think the free-to-play progression path has gotten a lot better, and overall just been a lot more exciting with a lot more options, especially with Helos Warblade, the Nashir Scepter, the oh my gosh, I have the Whisper. I don't even remember the Gale, whatever it is. There are so many different, options now that you can transition your weapons into. We need to figure out the new game plan. We need to figure out the new game plan, because it is so open-ended at the current moment in terms of, people are still running tests on the double S rank weapons and still trying to figure out what the best option will be. That said, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I think it's a pretty nice free-to-play buff, and I am excited to see when this update drops, especially as someone that has been really prioritizing the Ghost Legacy. Hopefully I won't regret this, but we'll see. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all for the next one.